Professional Serving Community, talkradio.nyc.
Your boy is back. We're dancing in the attic. We're dancing at the museum. The one and only nonprofit sector connector. Your boy Tommy D. The show is Philanthropy. Take a breath, kid. In focus. Let's get ready. We're talking about the Long Island Children's Museum. My friend Erika Floreska is here. Good morning, Erika. What's going on?
Good morning, Tommy.
Are you fired? Are you fired up, man? Your voice sounds incredible today. Very
It's
good.
a lot better than the last couple days.
Hey, listen,
Still have
man.
a little low tinge to it.
Every day is a journey, my friend. We're just trying to get better than yesterday. And in this case, your voice is just trying to get a little better. Talk about voices. I love the sound of mine. And so do you if you keep showing up every week to see this and hear this show. Shows Philanthropy and Focus. As I said, every week we do a couple things on the show. I help nonprofit leaders tell their story and amplify their message. And I was just looking at a spreadsheet I keep here. And this is the 160th episode of a journey I'm on. So how cool is that? I'm jazzed. I'm excited. And I tell you, it's the 160th episode we've done here on talkradio.nyc. I played around with a lot of different things before that, but I said for a while that I was going to do this show for about 2 years. And it's funny, I was in a meeting yesterday about this new project that I've been considering for a while. And it sort of looks and feels like Philanthropy and Focus plus a show that used to be on called Dirty Jobs, because it was this guy, Mike Rowe, who would go around and do these jobs and just do strange things. Like one episode, the guy was underneath a boat cleaning off barnacles. I'm not doing that unless, of course, there's a nonprofit that does that. You might see me cleaning barnacles off the bottom of a boat. I don't know. Who knows? Snorkel gear or the whole thing, scuba gear. I don't know. We'll see. But the point is, I have this idea for this project. I'm excited about it, and I'm not going to walk around and talk about it for 2 years like I did about Philanthropy and Focus. So we will hear more about that. There's a lot to talk about. Erika and I know each other from hometown, Long Island, Strong Island, and I mean, the Long Island Children's Museum, that's a staple on our island. We have so much to talk about. We're calling this program Diversity, Accessibility, and Philanthropy. The Long Island Children's Museum, Diversity, Accessibility, and Philanthropy. And we're going to dive into all of that. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. I promise you a couple of things. I promise you I'm going to be silly at different times throughout the morning. And also, we will run out of show before we run out of stories and words to say. It's just the way it is, gang. It's just the way it is. Keep them wanting more. That's like a media trick. Keep them wanting to come back for more. Erika, I learned something that will probably weave into the conversation this morning when and as you introduce yourself. But I had to Google something this morning, and I have it on my phone. So we'll get into that. What I always like to start my program with, and we talked earlier this week. Well, because you lost your voice, I talked more this week, and I think I talk more than most people. We were just talking about that in the little green room. So I want to understand, there's a journey, in my experience, there's a journey that leaders of nonprofits go on. They get connected to this work for some reason or another. Sometimes it's their family situation. Sometimes it was a teacher, a professor, something that drew them to this work. Sometimes I was a Girl Scout. No, I wasn't a Girl Scout, gang. Let me strike that. The quotes, somebody might say, I was a Girl Scout and service is something we were always focused on, or I was a Boy Scout, or whatever the case, Eagle Scout, the whole. Everybody has a story. I'm not a big comic book fan. I'm actually kind of the funny guy that would collect comic books and put them in the plastic package and put them away when I was like 13 years old, and they're somewhere in this attic because I think the ones from like 1992 are going to be worth money one day. I never read them because I was like, you can't get fingerprints on these. Put them right in the plastic. Anyway, yep. Origin story, right? That's where I'm going from the comic book. We see it in movies. We see it in the hero's journey. We see it in all the Star Wars and stuff and all these movies. There's always that arc of somebody's story, but it starts somewhere. In your case, now that I've teed it up, can you, by the way, I love your background. That is such a cool background, gang.
Come
If you're not,
visit.
if you're not watching, say it again.
I say, come visit.
Come visit. Well, where is this place? Why don't you, before we even do that, let's tell them, where is this Long Island Children's Museum? Is it on Long Island?
Okay, it's on Long Island. We are in Garden City on the wonderful Museum Row, where we are next to our friends at the Cradle of Aviation and a firefighters museum. Central Nassau County, right next to Uniondale as well, in our neighbors. But we serve over 300,000 people a year. They come from everywhere, from the tip of Long Island at Montauk all the way to the other tip of Long Island, Brooklyn, which we also claim Brooklyn and Queens as part of Long Island.
Shout out.
We're here for everybody.
Shout out to the geography, gang. Look at a map. If you don't get it, look at a map. Brooklyn and Queens are part of the island. All right, just leave it. You know what I always thought was funny, and I found out one time. There's a town on Long Island called Lynbrook, and it was a bunch of folks that moved out from Brooklyn that founded Lynbrook. How fun is that, right? I love that.
Heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
I love that. So Long Island Children's Museum, licm.org. So I want people to, I actually love that Museum Row because when I graduated from Chaminade, I didn't really have a lot of direction, and I was working in the bar and restaurant business. I went to Nassau Community College right there. So that's right on the campus in Nassau. Funny story about Nassau, and then we're going to get into your background. I graduated high school in 1996, and the funny thing about Nassau back then was there's this big parking lot, which you're aware of, that wasn't always back in the 96, 97, 98, was not exactly a complete parking lot. There was a bunch of dirt mounds and stuff like that. And sometimes in the beginning couple of weeks of a semester, you had to park in the dirt until 30% of people dropped classes, and then you could get a parking spot. So I always got a kick out of that. So it was only the first couple of weeks you couldn't park, and then there was the dropouts and stuff like that, and you could park there. Anyway, that's just an anecdotal story. Let's get into you, the organization. Let's do it, Erika, please.
Yeah. So my origin story is one around centered in music, actually. I was born into a family with lots of musicians and lots of educators. I would say music and education are kind of themes.
Yep.
Both my parents were musicians. My dad supported kind of music on the business side. He launched a presenting firm with some buddies to bring, when I was young, to bring the King Singers and the Canadian Brass to Detroit. I was actually born in Detroit, Michigan. And at those concerts, I would help sell CDs and, well, actually LPs, I should say. This is in the 70s.
Yes.
I would help sell LPs during intermission, and just was around concerts and presenting.
What a cool growing up lifestyle, man. How cool is that? And first of all, being from Motown, being from Detroit, right? Like, just I did not know that about you.
I'm a Michigander from.
You want to know the funny part about it? So I was looking on LinkedIn this morning, and I was looking at your background, and it says MM in music, right? So I type in, so you want to know the funny thing about this? Shout out to my friend Mick Collins, if you're listening. Mick is a big Eminem fan. So I type in the letters M, and music, and who pops up on my screen on the Google is Marshall Mathers. And that shout out to Detroit, right? Now, how funny is that? Because I wasn't looking for Marshall Mathers, but he showed Marshall Mathers. Yep. I'm sorry, everybody. That's Eminem's name, in case some people might not be on the up. My friend Robert Rosner. Robert, if you're listening, Eminem is a rapper. He's from Detroit. My friend Robert listens to us on like an 8-track or something like that. So talk about LPs. So you're selling the LPs, you're out selling
LPs, and just being around music and presenting music. I'm a flute player. My MM is a master's in music. And my son asked me at one point, when you were 18 or 19, his age, and you were a flute major in school, did you ever think you'd be running a children's museum? And like, how do these things get along? Well, no.
You said yes, right? You told him yes.
I said, absolutely. I had my career planned out. I knew every step of the way. No, seriously. I was a flute player, really active flute player in high school. And I wanted to go to college, not to be a flute player, but to be able to play and be around, just learn about a lot of stuff. I went to a liberal arts school, the College of Worcester, Ohio, because I wasn't going to be a music major, because I saw the music performers in my family and that sort of freelance lifestyle. I'm like, I want a little more kind of stability.
Was that because you felt like, you saw that and it was like, oh my God, they just got to hustle to get a gig? And then, well, at least when you're playing the flute, right? It's not like you got to carry, like if you're a drummer, oh my God, right. you need a fan. You can put this kind of in your backpack, right? It's not, but it was like the stability is missing, right? In a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually played bassoon in 8th grade for a year. we went on a trip, a band trip to Great Six Flags, Great America in Chicago. And carrying that bassoon around for just a week, I was like, forget it. I'm back to the flute and the piccolo because I can
That would
carry
be
that
quick.
anywhere.
That would have been quick. One of my sons is playing the saxophone, and it's like super big, and he's not that big yet. He's only 9, but like this thing is as tall. When he puts in the case standing up, it's like his height.
Oh yeah.
And it's always laying around somewhere. I don't. You have children, so things are always laying around.
Yeah, well, we're a musical family, so we got instruments all over the place. But basically, when I was in college, my liberal arts degree, I got to learn about a lot of different things. I took philosophy, geology was actually one of my favorite classes,
Really?
Psychology. I was a music education major for a little bit, but I realized I didn't want to be in front of a classroom. That was not my role, but I loved education. And I ended up being a flute major. And so then you kind of have that, could I do it as a flute player? And that's where I went to Michigan. And I said, let me give it a shot, master's degree. I wanted a degree from the University of Michigan because I love that school.
Right.
And pretty quickly there, I actually realized I could be. I was pretty good in my day as a flute player, but I had a internship or a work study program in the Office of Administrative Affairs. And I had worked study during college in the music office. I'm like, I actually like this behind the scenes stuff, and really started to realize there's a career out there, which I didn't know, for arts administration, that support behind the scenes. There are people and professionals who have to help make every concert happen or every school program happen. And I felt interested in that. So I finished my master's degree. I got my degree from Michigan, but then immediately started working at the presenter there. So the University Musical Society presents concerts. So they bring in concerts from all over the world to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I was a production coordinator. I was responsible for driving the artists around, getting their food backstage, filling out the rider, the blue M&Ms, the green M&Ms, and then making sure we had the right, number of chairs and stands on the stage. And really that's where I got started in my career, kind of behind the scenes production for performing arts.
So you had like some access to the artists and stuff like that. So that's awesome, right? And that's kind of cool and fun. I got to tell you a funny story. I'll tell you several of those today. So my cousin Linda passed away, and we have a family foundation named the Lindy Lou Foundation, which you and I should talk about at one point. Okay. But one year, my cousin Taryn was working at the Adelphi PAC, Performing Arts Center at Delphi University. Exactly. Yep. So that's where you are, right? Like in Michigan, like you're in that world.
Exactly. Think in Long Island, the Tillis Center.
Tillis Center, sure. When I graduated Chaminade, they sent us in white tuxedos with red cummerbunds to the Tillis Center. I don't live too far from CW Pole. So
awesome.
So I know
while I was there, I really fell in love with the education program. So like when the artists came into town, we would do workshops or master classes with the university or with the high schools. And that became kind of the side part of my job. Nonprofits often have one hat and then you add on another one and another one. So I was the education liaison with the artists. And that was awesome because then I saw how the arts activate kids and teachers and engage people in a part of our living, beauty and exploration and imagination, and that the arts can really do. And so I'm all in. I got to be around this. I didn't even know or understand the phrase or the informal education, but that's really what I realized I was drawn to and became a path through my life. So from Ann Arbor, I had a New York blip. I really wanted to live in New York.
So did you have connection to New York or Long Island at all in any way?
My grandparents lived in Connecticut when I was young, so I would come up here and visit them, and we'd come into the city for some trips. So my image of New York is like the tourism, like all the great things about New York. So it's kind of that dreamy, if you're going to be in the arts and music, you gotta be in New York. And through the connections at UMS, I had connections in New York because the artists, a lot of them came from New York, or artist managers. One of which was Jazz at Lincoln Center, Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra.
I want to get into that because that's a big step. So we're going to get into that. I think there's a lot I want to cover. The informal education piece, I want to get back to that. I want to come back and go to the Jazz at Lincoln Center thing. There's something I have to read. It's like a pause in the show. So I had to Google the word flautist this morning because I knew we were going. All right. So I knew we were going to go here. So I'm just going to say, it says, because I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, Erika, if it was flutist or flautist. So I like people to learn a lot on the show. We try to pack a lot into the show. So I'm going to read this for you. For the noun devoting a person who plays the flute, Americans usually use flutist. In varieties of English outside of North America, flautist is more common. Okay, you didn't know that, right? Now it says that flutist came from the French, the French flutiste. But then later on in the 19th century, flautist came to the English from the Italian flautista. Who knew? Now you all know. Those are 90 seconds you all will never get back, but you can walk away and say you understand these things now. So then it says at the end, if you can't decide which to use, just say flute player. I would agree with that.
Okay, I literally was gonna, I usually use flutist, but in the safe round, because I play the flute, I don't play the flout.
Right.
But I literally was about to say, just call us a flute player. I'm a
Just
flute
say
player.
flute player, man. She's a musician who plays the flute, man. Why are we making this so challenging? For some reason, Kenny G, although he did not play the flute, but there's somebody who didn't, was able to take that instrument, right? Kenny G with I think it's the alto sax, I think he plays, right? And
Soprano, yep.
soprano sax.
Or alto.
Yeah. Well, he plays the saxophone. That's easier. That's just like saying flute player. But like, there's a performer who made, a super, super successful career by playing an instrument. I'm sure he's got a band behind him. I never watched Kenny G shows, but the point is, he's not like just the sax guy in the band. Like, he is the front man. Very cool things that you can do with instruments. All right, we are going to come back. We're going to talk about jazz at Lincoln Center. I want to start there because that kind of we're in New York at that point, right? We're feeling this out. I love this piece about the education liaison, which we got to hit upon too, and informal education, which I want to know. I think my whole world is informal education, gang. Wherever you go, you can learn stuff. Loudest, you didn't know that, did you?
Yep.
The show is Philanthropy and Focus. It's I just stick with us, man. We got a lot to teach you this morning. Erika, we'll be right back.
Great.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Talk about musicians, talk about bands, talk about music. That song right there was, I wrote that song with my friend Brendan Levy. We wrote the lyrics, he wrote the music. Shout out to Brendan, shout out to the Queen's Chamber of Commerce where Brendan works, but they had a band back in the day called The Goods. And as they got to be older men, they call themselves Damaged Goods. And that's a song that the Damaged Goods, really Brendan and some of the team recorded for me. And they play out at Docks a couple times in the year. Like in the last 3 months, I've seen them at Docks in Island Park. One day, Erika, you'd get it. I think we're of the same era. They play 80s, 90s, like, top 40s, like the Pretenders, Tom Petty, like cool stuff, so they're great. Brendan's great. And I laugh because we're talking music. As we were at break, I shared the website for the Long Island Children's Museum, which is licm.org. So cool that you have such a short URL because like that's not always what you get.
Yep.
So that's really cool. And I know I hang out at GoDaddy a lot when I come up with ideas. I try to, do full websites that I want to, things I want to create. But licm.org. I was looking at something for, how do you pronounce this? Is it Holly or Holy?
Holy.
Holy? Okay.
It's a holy festival. We're celebrating coming up Sunday, April 14th.
And there's going to be, it says, P.S. Wear white clothes that you don't mind getting messy. Color throws take place at 12:30 and 2:30. Now, wearing this tie-dyed shirt, maybe I was thinking of Holy this morning. I was like, holy cow, Tommy D, your hair looks great. But what I'm thinking at least one of my sons would dig that. So I got to figure out about bringing him there. And
yeah, Holy's one of our cultural festivals. We do a big one every year celebrating. This is a tradition in Indian culture. And we sort of try to get all the senses going when we have a cultural festival here. So there's going to be some food samplings. There's going to be dancing and music. There's going to be arts and crafts that enliven and engage people around this culture. And then the traditional color throws. It's a real celebration of joy and color and the newness of spring.
I love that.
And we anticipate a lot of folks coming. These are always great because we're really celebrating the culture and the traditions of Holy, both for people who that may be their practice, but also to introduce it to people who may not know what Holy is or how it is. And we work in partnership with our cultural supervisor and someone or partner who really helps, who's from that culture and really helps make sure that we're doing it in ways that honor and celebrate the culture. So we invite everybody around. It's going to be great.
I'll tell you, whether you knew that to your 19-year-old, shout out to your son, by the way, and all of your children. I don't know how many children you have. Two? Both
fabulous musicians. Yeah.
Both of them. They're both musicians.
Both in college. They're both in college in Michigan.
And both, are they at the University of Michigan?
One is at the University of Michigan and one is at Western Michigan in Kalamazoo.
Oh my God, how awesome is that? So cool. A little like back to the culture, and they're both musicians. That's awesome too. Listen, I'm a big music fan. We probably don't have time to talk about that, or we'll talk about nothing else. But I just there's always music going on around us, so it's so important. And you and I know this, and everybody listening probably does. Things can change your mood in a second when you're listening to the right tune. Or I like being mellow and melancholy sometimes, and I listen to some tunes that bring me down, and I sort of dig that. There's like, it's okay to be down sometimes, and and mellow and melancholy, and I like that too. A little bit. Anyway, you don't want to be inside my head. You don't have that kind of time. All right, so let's go. I want to go to Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Sure.
And I'm going to come back to Long Island Children's Museum as we progress through this conversation. So you're in New York now. You get this gig at Jazz at Lincoln Center. Let's talk about that.
Yep, I'm in New York, living the life, rooming with a friend of mine from Minnesota. And I started working at Jazz Lincoln Center as the assistant to the executive director and producer. So I was sort of an executive assistant that gave me a really bird's eye view to how nonprofits work. So I got to work with the development department and the finance department and the production department and the touring department and the education department. And I think that it was about an 8-month stint in that role that really kind of piqued my interest about how whole organizations work. From there, pretty quickly, I moved into the education department. So back to that informal education. Yeah. I got lured in by this amazing program called Essentially Ellington. It's all about the music, celebrating the music of Duke Ellington. Wow. And giving away scores for free to high schools across the country, high school jazz bands. And then we would run a festival in New York every year. So I did that. I was around that program for about 14 years. And they called me essentially Erika. It was very much my, I got to grow it from, it was 3 states, 13 states. And then I inherited it when it was 26 states. We grew it to all 50. We added Canada. We added regional festivals, band director academy, comments only option. And then we did a partnership in both Australia and London. So kind of growing from kind of a local to an international impact with that program. I also happened to meet my husband, who was a high school band director at the time. So it was very much a part of when I also grew in, my family. We had our kids when I was there. And very, very much influenced by the spirit of jazz as an American art form that brings people together across different races, across different spectrums, and a music that is inherently democratic in both celebrating the ensemble coming together, but each individual voice in the ensemble can be celebrated, and you're encouraged to find your own voice and solo in your own way. And that just kind of is a theme around what I really believe community can be, how we come together, and being able to work in that environment around both the music and the community that was created and my family was, fantastic. I mean, really amazing experiences, and being able to kind of go to that international level of connecting with others across the pond was really impactful, and I loved it. And as your family grows, and I'm living in Long Island, community into the city, there was a point where it's like, how do I not be gone? I mean, I was on the road. I was like traveling at least 1 week a month, sometimes longer, which is really hard on a family. And I missed some of my kids were starting to grow up and getting into their own activities. So I switched gears and actually went, but at the same time, I also was kind of curious about executive leadership, right? So I had this point, I was like, I had a lot of encouragement in thinking about going into an executive leadership role. And the first one that was made available, or that I, interviewed and, had search firms, did all this whole thing, was a theater company called Tectonic Theater Project. And what drew me to that company was they were really engaged in telling stories about real people, real stories, using interviews of voices of people who had experienced things, but highlighting issues around social justice and human interaction. So they're most known for the Laramie Project, which is was a play and then turned into a movie about the murder of Matthew Shepard out in the University of Wyoming many years ago. But we also worked on a show, The Tallest Tree in the Forest, about artist activist Paul Robeson. I worked on a show developing Carmen, the story Carmen, set in Cuba with an Afro-Cuban jazz score. So as a developmental theater company that had musical elements and telling stories about real folks, and it was amazing. I mean, they do amazing work. They're really, really beautiful folks, but I missed the music and the education piece. It really, that informal education that I didn't define until I came here to Long Island is what drew me then to a community music school on the Upper West Side, the Bloomingdale School of Music.
So, wow, I just so much here. I mean, I want to go back to the piece where you kind of got drawn into kind of the executive leadership angle of this whole thing, and what was it? Because it's funny. I feel like, whether it be nonprofit leaders or business leaders, sometimes a business person gets into a certain industry because they really let me make an example. They like to paint houses, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they have these pesky things called employees, and they have things called trucks and things called payroll, right? And workers' compensation insurance, right? And they look back and they realize they haven't painted a house in 6 years. And you go and they're like, well, I love this. I love painting houses. Yeah. So I wonder for you, is there, and when we first met, which we haven't even gotten to this part yet, but you were the director of development for the Long Island Children's Museum, yep. Right? And so I'm wondering, and I don't know, we're going to a break shortly, but let's talk about this angle of, you don't get to paint houses anymore sometimes, right?
Yeah. It's so interesting. For me, everything is about the mission. Yeah. And it's about, for me, what drew me in was the impact that music was having on kids.
Yeah.
The impact that experiential learning through play is, you see joy in kids' eyes. You see kids light up. In music, you see them overcome, where they couldn't read the music at first, but now they can play a song, or they didn't know a dance move, but now they can, they have this, they build a skill and they gain confidence. So for me, even though I'm doing, I'm behind the scenes and doing all these different things and having to manage people and trucks and buildings and HVAC and, and dealing with payroll, all of that, it's about the kids, and it's about learning, and it's about community, because the theme in all of my places is where the mission is to bring people together and make connection to themselves, to others, and connection across differences. Really, we're talking about diversity and how do we bring people together. Our Holy Festival is a great example of one of the ways LICM does it, but it was a theme at my music school, at the theater company, and at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And that's what draws me. When I know I'm whatever I'm doing behind the scenes is contributing to a place where people can come together in a positive way and connect or learn or grow or be inspired. Like that's my motivation to do all the other
stuff
that comes with
stuff.
it.
We'll say stuff. We'll say stuff. Yeah, there's a technical term for it, but we don't curse on the show, so we'll just call it stuff. But like, look, I had a friend coming on the show a couple weeks ago, and let's just say the person who's coming on was a little anxious about coming on the show, and I said, you know what? Look, if you didn't care, you wouldn't have anxiety or nerves, but because you care, you have that, right? I said, but here's the thing: at the end of the day, I get anxious only all the time, and I get nervous even doing this show after doing 159 before today, 160 episodes. The point is, I'm nervous because I want to serve my guest and I want to serve people listening and I want to serve the mission. And I said to my friend who was coming on the show a few weeks back, I said, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the mission. It's about the mission of your organization. And yeah, trust me, I'm Tommy D's biggest fan. And I say that as I'm a big fan of the character, not just because I have ego issues, Erika, and everyone else listening. But I am a big fan of mine, but it ain't about me, man. It's a platform, right? So the same thing is, I get out of the way. I try to get out of the way. And I said to my friend, just get on here. Don't be nervous. You're here to serve the mission of your organization. That's what it is, man. So the fact that it's all about the kids, it's the experiential learning, right? Right back to the informal piece. And gang, if you haven't been to Long Island Children's Museum, text me and we'll go because I get these big bubble wands, which maybe we'll talk about, that I had so much fun. I was so cranky because when we came to visit last year, for the nonprofit resource hub, I did not get to play with the bubbles. So I like literally walked away from people this time. And I was like, I'm going to play bubbles. I got to do what Tommy D. We got to go play bubbles. So I got Eric Carl coming up, or Eric Carl's thing right now is at the big caterpillar, right? What's the book?
The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
Very Hungry Caterpillar. My son loves that one.
Yep.
So I want to get
a whole exhibit celebrating
walk through, right? Like walk
Very Hungry, his whole series of books. It's one of our favorite traveling exhibits that we have. They come in kind of each season.
Yep.
Yeah. So right now we have Eric Carl until May 12th, Mother's Day. Right. It's been an awesome experience. It's, there's an orchestral wall, there's a climbing area, there's a spider web to make, there's a video interactive.
I love that.
Really, kind of what represents what we do, which is activating this wonder, imagination, and exploration in all kinds of ways.
I love that. Wonder, imagination, and exploration. Oh my God. Gang, I don't care if you're 96. The point is wonder and imagination, man. What's better than that? God, all I do is imagine stuff most of the day. All right, talk about imagining things. We got to stop imagining things. We got to take a little break, but we come back, we're on Bloomingdale. So I want to go back to Bloomingdale, and then we're going to kind of fast forward and get into programmatically LICM, what it is, how we partner up, when Tommy D is going to come for a visit, that we record the whole day of me hanging out at the Long Island Children's Museum. That sounds like a fun show to me. All right, Erika and Tommy in the attic, right back.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
All right. This just in, because this is how my brain works. Sometimes I just get an idea and I'm about to say it. What, Erika Floreska, was your first concert and where was it? Do you remember?
Oh my goodness. I don't remember because there's so many.
Well, you were working with your dad and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, and wow, I've been going to concerts forever. I mean, the first concert I remember with my dad, we had the King Singers, which is this English male singing group at Orchestra Hall in Detroit. That was just phenomenal. First concert that I kind of really went, this is a great story. First concert that I sat in my college dorm room at a phone, rotary dial, having to dial over and over because, when you get tickets, there's no internet, there's no online. It was to see Billy Joel's Stormfront concert.
Where was that?
It was in Cleveland. I was actually in Cleveland. I was in college in Ohio, but I was a huge Billy Joel fan, 80s. In the 80s.
Of course.
When he went to the USSR, I actually played in a youth orchestra that toured Russia in 1988, right after the curtain came down.
Yeah, sure.
So Billy Joel was very much a part of my soundtrack, and of course now I live in Long Island where Billy
of course
Joel is...
he's not in fact, when I go out on my friend's boat, we see his house. We're not far from where I'm.
Oh, amazing.
I'm not very far from where he's at. But I've never seen Billy Joel in concert, and there's like every other day there's Billy Joel music in this.
I just went to his 99th MSV.
Did you? Oh, I'll tell you,
my best friend flew in from Michigan. It was a whole thing. Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. Well, so since you didn't ask, I'll just tell you, Debbie Gibson, Radio City Music Hall. It was like I was like 8 or 9. It was like 86, 87. Little Debbie Gibson, who now I believe is Deborah Gibson. And shout out to Debbie Gibson. If you ever want to come on the show, Debbie Gibson. I will say though, I was a bigger Paula Abdul fan than I was a Debbie Gibson fan. But my Uncle Buddy took my cousin Vinny, my cousin Mickey, and I see Debbie Gibson at Radio City. It was one of these fluky things. Like, he didn't buy the tickets to bring his 2 sons and his nephew Tommy D. He got 4 tickets somehow, and we ended up at Radio City, no less. Like this little pop queen, doing this thing on. Anyhow, that's. There's another story I had, but maybe we'll come up with it later on because we got to get into your stories. Let's go into Bloomingdale and let's make our way to programs and stuff like that at Long Island.
Sure. So Bloomingdale is an amazing community music school, and I think the theme there was a real commitment to providing access to music lessons and experiences that for kids who couldn't afford it. Mm-hmm. So really drawn to how do we make sure things are every experience is accessible to all kids. It's not just those who have the money to make it, but because all music education is part of every kid's soul. It's just having access to that. And really what happened there is I was interested in being closer to home. Again, sort of I went from the international to now the regional, and then I met the president of the Long Island Children's Museum, where we were members as family. So yeah. I've known the museum as a parent, and I brought my kids here. We had my son's birthday party here. Really loved this location as a safe place to bring my kids, my family on a rainy day, on a beautiful day. And, one of the things we're talking about diversity, and Long Island can be such a segregated community. We really live separate from one another. And my kids are mixed race. So having a place where we could come, where we saw each other, we saw other folks who looked like us, who didn't look like us. LICM has always been this center where people come and come together and learn together and play together. And a lot of those things that separate us or make us different, or keep us from interacting is here's where those barriers come down. And here's where kids play on the climber. They teach each other to climb through the climber, and make friends, in a day, for an hour, sometimes for a lifetime. But that coming together. So I met my predecessor, Suzanne. And at that time, I was really interested in fundraising. I was pretty good at it over at the music school. And the director of development position opened up. And I, put my hat in the ring, and I said, I would love to really bring to my career a local impact. I raised my kids in Baldwin, Long Island. Shout out to Baldwin.
Shout out South Shore. I grew up in Franklin Square, not too far from it.
Awesome.
I know well.
And really being in a place that impacts the community where my kids grew up. I want to make sure that community is rich and connected, and creating these connections for everybody. And kind of this idea of going from this international peak at, at Jazz Lincoln Center and essentially on to now feeling really motivated to help, everybody. And Long Island, with all of its unique characteristics and beauty and just innovation and creativity, how can we really enhance and make sure this community is here for the next generation? And I feel like LICM is at, at the center of some of that work.
Yeah, I want to. So first of all, we got to shout out our friend who is your newest, I assume newest employee, but your newest director of development. My friend, your friend Erika White. I knew Erika originally when she was at Girls Inc. of Long Island. We traveled together when she went over to Little Flower, and I actually emceed a virtual event. Remember those virtual events? I emceed a virtual gala. God, I hate virtual stuff. I mean, it's so,
we are, though.
we're doing it, right? We're doing it now, but I hate it in the sense that I want to hug people, and I can hug myself alone when I'm here, and I get to hug everybody else. But Erika, she asked me to be the MC at Little Flower. It was one of my 60 days of service, and then she's most recently was at Girl Scouts of Suffolk County, and then you sneaked over and took her away.
I guess I did. Yeah. Erika just joined our team as the new director of development. So finally, I mean, in, nonprofits, here I was wearing two hats.
How long was that? Because when you took over
it's been since June. It's been a long time, like
almost a year at this point.
It took a little while because one of the things that makes, we talk about philanthropy and Long Island Children's Museum, we do it all, right? So we've got government grants, we've got corporate grants, we've got foundation grants, we do big events, we do little events. Yeah. We get support from so many different arenas that it's important to find someone who really can understand and speak all those languages in the philanthropy side, and who's really committed to Long Island. I mean, we're such a, this community, I really wanted someone who has that connection and that personal commitment to our community, but to find that with someone who has all those skills was really hard. But I found her, and
you found her. Well, we love Erika. I know you're listening out there. We love you. I think though, very, very interesting what you say. Let's dive into that piece a little more, because you have these different stakeholders, and from a development perspective, going out and getting, a monthly dollar amount from the neighborhood people to government, right, to other stakeholders and, the major donors, institutional donors. I was at an event for AFPLI not too long ago, and you had some folks from the health systems talking about like institutional funds and things, and all these different, like, those are different languages. Those are different talk tracks. You're talking to different people, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things, like for LICM, a lot of people think maybe we're owned by the county. We're not. We are on county land. We love Nassau County. They're our landlord. But we have we're $6 million operation. Mm-hmm. And only half of that comes from the ticket revenue and the birthday parties, sort of the earned revenue side. So we're raising $2 to $3 million a year.
That's a lot. That's a lot of dough. That's a lot of dough, man. Not a little bit of dough.
No joke. Yeah. And so it requires that all these different languages to be spoken, because we're not just the birthday party and the field trips and the rainy day fun. We have a theater. We have a professional theater in the museum. We have a community commitment. I mean, this is where what makes us kind of stand out and different from maybe some other children's museums is we have a program called LICM for All. It's for families with children with disabilities. And we make the museum free and available every single month for those families. Yeah. We have special sensory backpacks and a special sensory room that we've created an environment to welcome those families in. We have a Together to Kindergarten program that is a pre-K program for early childhood kids whose parents were educated elsewhere who are about to enter the American school system.
Let's do that one again. Kids whose parents were educated elsewhere, right?
Yep.
They're newly
immigrant families.
New immigrant families.
Yep, who may not know how the U.S. school system is. In the summer, we set up Together to Kindergarten. We have 40 kids in July, 40 kids in August, and they come and experience what a kindergarten classroom is like. And on every Monday during those weeks, the parents come too, because we really work with the parents to learn, or the caregivers to learn, what are the expectations? How do you support your child in school? What does the American school system expect of you, which is often different from where they've been. So things like, making sure the lunch is healthy and packed, getting the kids ready for the school bus on time, but really join the PTA, get involved in the school. And the idea that when the school calls, that doesn't mean your kid's in trouble.
Yeah.
That means they may be reaching out for something. The teachers and the school is there to help, but you can be your child's advocate and get involved and get engaged, along with how to play with your kid at home. We send all kinds of games and things home to really encourage parents and children learning together.
How long has that program been going on?
That program's been going on almost 17 years now.
So, sorry to interrupt. I know you weren't there, but can you talk about so I'm a sales guy at the end of the day, right? We own this insurance agency, Vanguard Benefits. Check out our website because it was done by Spirit of Huntington Arts Center gang. You've heard me talk about them on the show. That's a whole nother topic I want to talk to Erika about for an hour. But Vanguard Benefits You gang, Vanguard Benefits, not gang, leave out the gang. Vanguard Benefits You, YOU, check that out, vanguardbenefitsyou.com. The reason I bring it up is, I'm a sales guy at the end of the day. So I always like, where were you when you found this client? What were they experiencing and what did you do and how did you change them? So I want to real quick, if you could, we call that impact, I guess, in our industry here, nonprofit, right? So Erika, in that 17 years, yes, you weren't there, but you know the stories. Like, tell me how that changed the game for these families.
Oh, well, I mean, we have a bunch, but one, we have a student who was in the program 12 years ago now, and she and her family, we actually won the national medal, which is the highest honor a museum can get. And we had to go to the White House for a ceremony. And this girl and her dad went with them to represent the Together to Kindergarten program. She's from El Salvador, her dad's from El Salvador. And at the White House, they got to see all of this. They came back. Her dad actually then became a U.S. citizen and joined the Uniondale Fire Department.
Oh, wow.
We found her this year. She is now a senior at Uniondale High School. She plays saxophone in the marching band, who played at our gala. And she says, she's like, Ruth says, she's like, getting the start at Together to Kindergarten made her excel all the way through school. She's looking to go to college. She wants to be a corporate lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And she says what she learned here is what she took with her every step of the way. Wow. With her parents, how they engaged in her education. And she, she's a top student. She's a musician. So we love her.
Well, we like you already, Ruth.
One of many, 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 many.
I'm sure there's hundreds of those. That's probably a show we should just do about that. We're going to do I was going to say working tour. We're going to do a walking tour, you and me, and I'm going to have a videographer, just you and me chatting and walking through the museum one day. I'm saying that. How I'm welcoming myself into this, but I think you would go for it. But we're going to do, that's my new idea it's kind of one of my new ideas for, what we're going to do on the road and stuff like that. But I'd love to just hear about all these different stories, specifically Together to Kindergarten. Shout out to Ruth. Ruth, we loved you a minute ago. Then you played the saxophone. We love you even more now. So congrats. And when you do get into law school, get your LinkedIn profile set up right away and reach out to your boy, Tommy D, because I know some people might be able to help you out with some things. Erika, we're going to go to a break. We come back. I want to talk about what's upcoming. I mean, it's funny because I look at the website and in a lot of cases, it's like, all right, gang, let's hear what's upcoming for this organization. In your world, there's always something going on. It's not just what I usually am asking is, when's that pickleball tournament? When's the golf outing? When's the gala, right? In your world, it's a bit different because you're constantly...
You got it all.
You got it all. So I do want to hear about how we can help, who we can connect you with. And, to make it like kind of serious, like I call myself the nonprofit sector connector. And people go, well, what does that mean? Like I was at an event the other night for Pronto. My friend Heather Edwards got an award. Shout out to Heather Edwards and the Allied Foundation. 3 million diapers to families in need. Incredible. And I was at Pronto, and the development person, I just met her the other night. She goes, what exactly does a nonprofit sector connector do? And I said, that's a great question. You got a half hour? So the idea though is there are so many relationships that would benefit from LICM and knowing you personally and Erika that are right here on Long Island that probably haven't connected with you guys. So I want to hear about that. If there's specifics, if there's ideas you have, who you want to know, what's upcoming, how we can help. We will take a last break and we'll have about 6 or 7 minutes to wrap up the show. I told you it was going to go quick. I want to ask you about the sunflowers. Hopefully I can ask you about those huge sunflowers. I love sunflowers. You got these giant sunflowers behind you in the picture. Maybe we'll get into it, or maybe we'll just do it on the walking tour. This is Philanthropy in Focus. I am Tommy D. We'll be right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That's right, gang. Cut through this. Cut through the static, man. It's like push the smoke out of the way. Let's go. All right. I always wanted to be a game show host. Ding, 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 ding. This is the lightning round. Sunflowers. Are those sunflowers always there in the spring?
No, they grow from the beginning of the spring. They're there at the end. We have a little sunflower garden circle. So by, I don't know, I think July or August, they're there.
So I see tables there. Can we have lunch by the sunflowers one day?
You can. This is deceiving a little bit.
Oh, it is. All right.
Further away, but you could actually have lunch inside the sunflower circle.
Oh my God. Oh my God. The show's over. That's it. Have a great week, everybody. All right, so we could have lunch in the Sunflower Circle. Shout out to Matt Simone, our friend who is reached out to me over at Nerds That Care and said, Tommy D, I'm going to be listening to Erika. He's a good friend of ours. I love the Nerds That Care. Let's talk about National Grid. Let's talk about something you want to talk about at Westbury, and then let's talk about what do you need?
Yeah, well, I was going to say another program that the museum does that a lot of people don't know about is a great philanthropy story. Yeah. It's a need for the Westbury students that was brought to us by their teachers to learn and activate science in a more hands-on way. So the kids were reading about how to grow a plant in their books, and we said, partner with them, what if we actually grow a plant a seed, watch it grow? And that was 13, 14 years ago when we partnered with National Grid, who was the lead funder of this program. And we started with first and second graders. All the teachers get trained in hands-on science activities. It's called Westbury STEM. Then the kids come 3 times a year to the museum for hands-on activities with their teachers and our educators. They get to go to the theater to see an arts performance that connects into their STEM programs. And this was going like 12 years, National Grid, key funder. They also sponsored a Green Teens program that's about teenagers who come to the museum. They learn about environmental topics and then translate those into lessons for kids who visit the museum.
How long is that whole, though? There sounds like there's this whole arc. It's not like a weekend. It's going on for...
Oh, this is all year long. We're closed on Mondays. Every single Monday, we have students from the Westbury School District coming to our school.
And how old are these kids?
These kids are first and second graders.
So what is that implant? So like a lot of what I'm doing, talk about philanthropy, what I'm doing with my own children is running around doing all this nonprofit stuff, and they see it. My youngest guy, especially, it resonates with him. And he's like, when are we doing our next day of service? 9 years old. When are we doing our next day of service?
Awesome.
How freaking cool is that? But remind me to tell you one day about how he painted the basement of the waterfront center in Old Westbury. But what are we implanting in their brains? Talk about planting seeds. We're planting seeds.
We're literally planting seeds. You know, there's this need and all this focus on STEM workforce coming up because STEM and technology and, engineering is great, but you got to plant the seeds early. So what this program does is It's about exploration, taking risks, being curious. What happens when you plant a seed, or when you dissect a fish, or they dissect cow eyes, believe it or not?
Wow.
What happens when you build, how tall can you build a tower in our Kiva block area? And the kids get in different teams. How tall a building can you build? And can you balance something on top of it? Is it strong enough to withhold that? Or how long is the ramp that you can, roll a ball down to go as fast as possible? They're exploring all of these scientific topics through hands-on activities, but encouraging that curiosity, exploration, wonder, and those are the skills they need, whether they go into science for a career or whether they take those skills elsewhere. But for science, you need to build that curiosity young, and that's what the program's all about.
Yeah.
And this is where, what happened in COVID is the first and second graders, we sent kits to their houses. We did our best with virtual learning, but where National Grid came and said, what do you need? And we're like, those third graders who now were in COVID for 2 years, they need to come to the museum. And they expanded their gift. And the partnership we built over 12 years allowed for a discussion and a dialogue. How do we serve the needs of the kids? And because it's an ongoing partnership, when you build that relationship, the impact to have that conversation. So that led to the third grade. So now we're all third graders. Then there was a conversation. Is there anything else we could do to grow it?
This is National Grid asking you all.
It's a dialogue.
Right. It doesn't.
Build a relationship.
It doesn't matter. We're not wearing different shirts. We're on the same team, right? So.
Right. They understand. And then we added now STEM for all, expanded, including all of the special education kids in the whole Westbury School District, K to 12. So, and then we got a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, to help with that expansion. And this is the kind of thing where philanthropy, mission-based outcomes, your impact, where diversity comes into it. These are kids who we also give their families free memberships to the museum, because we want to encourage the parents. We do community nights here. We actually go to every single elementary school in Westbury and do STEM nights with parents and kids, building roller coasters sometimes, doing these activities together. And that's this sort of holistic view where we're out in the community, we're inviting the community in, we have the support we need from a government entity, from this lead grant with National Grid that's been a corporate, when you build a corporate sponsorship and a corporate partnership, I would say this is more partnership, over the years, and there's that commitment to ongoing support, you grow together and you figure out because it's what children need is always changing. So how do we have the dialogue around what is it kids need? What is it families need to enhance their learning in these ways? And what are the different resources we can pull together that help us have the resource to be able to provide those experiences?
Yeah. So that to me, and this is like a whole nother thing, you and I should just do like a Facebook Live and talk about philanthropy one day, because it's like that alignment between, I call them strategic alliances because I love those two words, but those partnerships, right? Those things where it's like, yo, we're both rowing in the same direction. We both want the same objective. We want the same outcome. Well, then this makes sense to be a team. I love that team situation. So
how do we row together?
Right on, man. And if you do row, it's great for your health. I'm not doing it. That looks like a lot of work. But I've seen those guys who row. They're big. All right, let's do this, Erika. We got to row out of here. And we got to row right out of here. I told you. I warned you. I told you it was going to happen. The thing with this is you just have to come back. All right. Long Island Children's Museum, licm.org. Just go there, check it out. Erika, leave them with something before I do.
Come see us. We're a big community. We're here for everybody. There's something for everybody, and we hope you'll come and enjoy it.
Love it. Erika, thank you for your friendship. Logan, thanks for all the work you do behind the scenes. I'm Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector. Make it a great day, everybody. I'll be back here next Friday. See ya.
Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions.